Ooh, why?
Hello, folks. I'm glad there are still people trickling in. I was like, oh yeah, 5 minutes is enough time for me to grab another cup of coffee. And then it was like 11:59. And I'm like, oh God. All
I
right.
logged in and nobody else was here, and I was like, "Do I have this wrong on my calendar?"
Time is not real, okay? Like,
Time is a flat circle.
basically. I just posted the link to the agenda in the chat if you don't already have it. Um, Feel free to add your name and your organization to the attendees list. Um, I'm going to give it just a couple minutes before we get started, in case other people are like me and misjudging how long it takes to get a cup of coffee between meetings. But we will get started in just a couple minutes. Okay, I know I need to say this, Heather. Yes, mug warmers are literally like the best gift in the world. I'm a chronic drink forgetter. And like probably, I don't know, like 15 years ago, my parents got me a mug warmer as a gift, like gag gift, haha, you forget your drinks. And I was like, no, literally, this is the best thing in the world. And then a few years ago, I got a one of those self-heating mugs. Um, I will say I don't know if I would spend money on that to buy it at like full sticker price. I was working at Starbucks at the time and it was on sale and I used tip money, which is fake money, right? It's all cash. But that like it has an app, it's very high tech, but you can literally control the temperature to the degree of your coffee. Um, I do really enjoy that, I will say. But yeah, if anyone is a chronic drink forgetter, you now have two recommendations for mug warmers. They seem silly, but yep, three.
Yeah,
There we go.
mine is a Mr. Coffee and it came in an as seen on TV box and I was like, haha, thanks. But no, I use it every single day.
It
Although
seems
keep
so
it far
silly.
away from your keyboard because otherwise you'll dump coffee into your keyboard and then spend the next 5 minutes Googling whether or not your laptop's keyboard has is separated from the guts.
Right,
Ooh,
trying to
an
just find a
ember.
thing of rice. Yes, the Ember is
Is
my
that what it
high-tech
is?
mug.
Yeah,
Yes. I do recommend it. I just maybe
yeah.
wait till there's like a Christmas sale or something.
I did finally get myself a hot water dispenser that will dispense at different temperatures. So for your different kinds of tea, you can have like boiling, or you
Oh.
can go like if you're doing white tea, you can do more like 185. That feels very fancy as well.
That is fancy. I just kind of use my ear to estimate based on how far boiling it is.
Fair.
That is, I'm like, oh, I'm doing a, loose leaf green tea this afternoon. It's just started bubbling. That's about right.
Oh man, awesome. This is great. I love this. And that was a good way to kill a few minutes. So, um, as always, there's a section at the beginning, just asking what version of Evergreen everyone is on. And if you have any upgrade plans, CW Mars did a very, very large upgrade from 3.7.4 to 3.15.4 in October on Columbus Day weekend. And that was an experience. I don't know if I will say I don't think we recommend waiting that long between upgrades. And that will segue into a later topic. But if you guys have any upgrade plans, feel free to add that in there or just add your current version. I think it's just nice to see who's on what versions, especially when we start having weird things happen, right? I did add a link just because we haven't met since AspenCon happened. So there is a link to the AspenCon recordings, the session notes, all that fun stuff if you missed it. Rogan presented, I presented, Mark presented. I'm looking through the names here. Um, I think that's everyone who's here who presented, but it was really fun just to, interact with everyone. So feel free to check those out. And I hope to see you guys at the next AspenCon conference. Time's not real, but we're going to talk about next year. Um, and now that AspenCon's out of the way, back to my segue topic from our large upgrade issue. Um, our upgrade, to no surprise, did not go as smoothly as we expected. One thing that we found, though, is that the Evergreen IDL file values can be cached in Aspen. And that can lead to mismatches in, how Aspen is reading the data it's getting from Evergreen. Um, because of issues we had with that, available in 2511, there is now a clear cached values button in, I believe it's in system variables. Actually, let me just pull that up so I can confirm or deny for you guys. Uh, Here we go. I'll just share my screen real quick. It's a little button. It's nothing crazy. But this is something that we have started. All right, so here's our backend stuff. You can see just under the return to list history and delete buttons, there's a clear cached values button that will clear the IDL file on Aspen side or force it to, check again for a new file. Um, so if you're doing any upgrades or anything like that with Evergreen, you might want to check that out and maybe use that. Um, Honestly, I don't know if this will happen to other people because no one else had it happen to them and like other, jumps. I think part of it was just, we did such a huge jump between versions of Evergreen, but I just wanted to put that out there since it's an Evergreen thing. So that is available in 2511, and Yanjun at Bywater did that dev, so thank you to Yanjun. Uh, and then some minor housekeeping business. There is a issue in Jira related to password resets in Aspen for Evergreen libraries, asking for Aspen to use, I think it's the Evergreen like password reset API. So you can set up Aspen to reset passwords for Evergreen. The email that patrons will get sent will link out to Aspen. That just requires some editing in your reset templates on the Evergreen side. Jason Boyer at Equinox put together some instructions for how to set that up, and that is linked in that Jira ticket. Um, that's all that you need to do to get that set up. It doesn't necessarily require Aspen development. So I wanted to check in with the group and see if that's something that we wanted to mark as maybe like won't do, since it's not necessarily Aspen development. It's currently marked as backlog in Jira. Um, we can always leave it as that. The thing with won't do is that the issue doesn't go away. It's just maybe a more accurate status for that issue since it's not necessarily something that needs development. But I wanted to check in with the group and see what you all thought.
My thought would be, can we put the documentation in Confluence? And then basically we could move it through as a non-development thing that needs documentation, but no
Ooh.
development, and just make sure that it's in Confluence so it's easy to find there.
Yes, let's see. So it looks like it was added in the Help Center. So my question is this page added to Confluence?
Okay, it is in Help Center.
Um,
It's been migrated. Um,
it would be on the account settings page, it looks like. I'm gonna just toss this into the agenda for now.
There's not an indicator that it's been moved yet in the help center. See if I can find the document. Find the right spreadsheet that has who is documenting what and see if it's been claimed yet.
Hey.
Account setting. Uh, it has been claimed, but it is still in planning.
Okay.
Not quite sure when it was claimed, but
Cool.
yeah.
So that will be in Confluence eventually. If anything, I might take a look and see if I can add that to someone's page if it's there. But that way, this documentation is like out there. Did we? I don't think we talked about like a documentation. I think that was just a status or a label. QA and documentation needed.
There's a yeah, documentation needed, not needed. Although it sounds like this is done, so
I'll put it as in progress and add a
mhm.
comment maybe.
Yeah.
All right. So, does that mean once documentation would be in Confluence, would we put that as done?
Yeah, I think we could call it done. I mean,
Okay.
it, yeah, we could even call it done now because it is in official documentation. So that and then just the migrating is part of the process that people are working on. So,
Right.
so I'd be comfortable calling it done now if we wanted to, but or we can wait until it's in Confluence. I didn't realize it was in the help center. So
That sounds fine to me. It's been done. Nope. Fixed version required. I forgot
yeah,
about
for
all
all the
those
things
required
in.
fields. Yep, yep. Okay. I'll work on that. We'll put that as done though. Okay. Cool. Um, that was it. I was just looking through Evergreen issues in Jira and was like, I that's not really an issue anymore. So thank you all for that. The next fun topic that I wanted to just chat about and check in with folks on is something I'm sure everyone is talking about right now, but cover images. Hey. Um, CW Mars uses Content Cafe uh, for as long as those servers are up. Um, we are currently looking at other options, particularly, I mean, really, I think that the main two options right now are Chili Fresh and Synthetix. We are testing the Chili Fresh integration and have that like set up with Evergreen and with our Aspen test server. It is still something that we're talking about, but I was just curious to hear what other folks were looking at, especially like if you're, for us, like our concerns are having images both in Evergreen and in Aspen, not just one or the other. I mean, we constantly have, tickets and librarians reaching out about how the cover images don't match or the cover image is wrong or something like that. So, how's it going for you guys? It's fine if that's a can of worms we don't want to open also.
I mean, I feel lucky to say that we use synthetics. We have actually used Chili Fresh in the past, but it's been a long time. It's been at least 4 years since we contracted with them. And in general, we liked them. They seem slow to add covers en masse, but the admin, I remember, gave you a lot of control for adding custom images for your library of things and for correcting images. I do remember that there was a lot of humorous, I don't know, one time we found a cover that just kept appearing and we ended up looking it up and it was in Bulgarian. And in Bulgarian, it read no cover image. And so like somehow like the default was in this wrong language. But yeah, my recollections of Chili Fresh were that it worked pretty well. It gave you a lot of control, but that in the end, it kind of required a lot of prodding for them to add new ISBNs. That was a long time ago. So I'd be interested to hear what people's other experiences are.
Semi semi related to this, Equinox is going to be working with Pales on some development this winter to allow Aspen to pull in Evergreen's local cover images, so things that you've uploaded locally as part of the cover image uploader. We're going to be working with them to point Aspen at that, so that'll be forthcoming.
We've been using Chili Fresh since we went live with Evergreen 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago. Works great for things that are in Evergreen. For some of our side loaded things, we can up or link them through Chili Fresh, but those sometimes take some extra, I don't know, weird amounts of time or refreshing in that. So sometimes it's faster and more reliable for us to upload something new into Evergreen from Chili Fresh and then just use the Aspen uploader if we have sideload things. And that might just be an us thing that we haven't figured out, but if it's things that are in Evergreen with covers, it's been great. But we are not adding the latest and greatest new things as public libraries often are. So maybe that makes a difference. We're doing the slow old stuff often.
You don't have to mention old stuff to me. I mean, I just talked about how we went up 8 versions of Evergreen.
I'll say at Grove, we are working on an additional content provider. So similar to Chili Fresh or Syndetics. We're working with Ingram on it. So we know it's getting late and people need to switch soon. We're at the point, as you can imagine, working with large companies like all of the legal takes time. But we should be ready to share pricing with anybody that's interested in the next day or so. Hopefully tomorrow, maybe Monday. We're having all kinds of fun with legal. So, but the intention is for that to be ready for 2512, so that if people want to do that, it is available prior to Baker and Taylor turning the lights off. So if you're interested, reach out.
Cool. Thank you, Mark.
Yeah,
Sorry, I'm like
Sure.
trying to type and everything.
we're kind of
Um,
in the same boat. This is Evergreen, Indiana. We checked out Syndetics and Chili Fresh and just ultimately decided on Chili Fresh purely from a cost perspective. That's just what works best for us.
Right. No, I feel like that's a big thing. We're in a weird boat because we have Content Cafe as like an addition to Novelist. So we don't like specifically have Content Cafe, which makes, as Mark mentioned, legal stuff is always so fun and contracts and all that great stuff, right? Um, that it's been interesting trying to get, pricing from folks in corporate and, Syndetics being with Clarivate, whoever now. Just brought me back to when I was working at a college and dealing with databases, right? Trying to deal with Clarivate and ProQuest. Ah, um, Elizabeth, I see that you put your camera on.
Oh, yes, hello. We've had the same problem getting information even from novelists about what part of our bill was the content cafe. Therefore, when other vendors were like, "We can match the price you're paying now," it's like we don't know what we're paying now. So it's been complicated, but we're testing Chili Fresh. So
Oh yeah, no, Jeanette had to go back and forth with like EBSCO because that's who we get our
yeah,
novelist subscription through about, so how much is Content Cafe? Like
yeah.
what it was a whole thing.
And I said novelist, but it's novelist is part of EBSCO, so it's
Right, because
yeah,
you do the whole database thing, right?
right. When
Right.
yes, yes.
Cool. All right. Any other thoughts? This is helpful. I just think it's, nice to hear what other people are looking into. Um, Especially since we're all using Evergreen. I assume we're all in similar boats, right?
I just think it's been really unfortunate for us. We're newly up on Aspen, and Aspen is like all about the cover images and all of that. So this is not good timing for us. It's yeah.
No, that's so hard. I mean, I mean, when we, went live last year, that was the big thing was like, look, you could do your Netflix browsing. Here's these cute categories. Look at these fun cover images, right? Um, yeah, that's been an interesting thing. We actually have been looking at the image quality that we're getting from places. And turns out the Content Cafe images were really nice quality.
Well, they were, but we were having problems with Content Cafe.
With the wrong images and wrong
With the yes,
descriptions and
yes,
yep, yep.
yes. I mean, then that is as important, or possibly more important, and also getting a lot of a cover image coming soon, like placeholders, when the book has been out for 6 months or more, and it's yeah, we didn't like that.
Yep. No, we have one of our catalogers on staff that she spends a unfortunate amount of time or spent an unfortunate amount of time following up with Baker and Taylor to be like, "Hey, can you update the cover image? Like DVDs are our nemesis." And I'm sure everyone else's nemesis because those images are always wrong, right? I actually just got a ticket from a library this morning being like, hey, this description and stuff is wrong. Can you fix it? It's from Novelist. And I have to go and be like, actually, that's from Content Cafe. I can't fix that. Like, but the incorrect descriptions I feel like are such a thing, especially because those, at least the ones that I've encountered, are like not just a little wrong, they're really wrong.
Yeah.
Like completely different title, genre, what have you. The one that I heard about this morning is just here's the young adult description versus the regular version. So that's not as bad, but I might have talked about this before. There's one title that we have that it's like a YA fantasy, magic book, and the description is for Aladdin.
Well, no point complaining about about Baker and Taylor now.
Right? That
Yeah.
news came out like literally the day after I had opened up another ticket being like,
Yeah.
"Hey, this is wrong." And it was like, "Well, that's not going to get fixed now." Like, but here, if anyone is curious to see that fun Aladdin description, I just think it's silly because they fixed it at one point. This was wrong before, and then Baker and Taylor fixed it, and then it went back to being wrong. Um, Very much not that kind of title. Um, So
Yeah.
yeah, that's kind of that, and that's the other part I think that makes it hard, right? If you're using Content Cafe for the descriptions, the summaries, those things, the reviews, like we're trying to figure out like how much do we want that? Do we like find an interim solution and then reevaluate? Like, you have to talk about contracts and all that fun stuff, and it's just I don't think anyone was prepared for Baker and Taylor to say goodbye. Like
In so many ways.
Right? No, that uh so cover images. Anything else? Thoughts, vibes? Perfect. Next up, we have community translations. Who added that?
I did. Sorry, it took me a second to find the unmute button. This is, I don't expect anything solid to come out of this discussion today, but I'd like to uh, start it as a recurring topic until we eventually find a solution. Uh, this has come up a little bit here and there over the last few years of implementing Aspen, but in the last 6 months or so, it's really become a major point with some of our libraries. Started with Noble, but we've also had a lot of discussions that have uh, become more heated in the sense of really interested in finding a way to share community translations outside of Bywater's enclave. So I would like to just start a community discussion about how we can do this as an actual shared Aspen community.
So my thought on it is we have a couple of representatives from the board here. And eventually the board and the Aspen Foundation should have a server that would be a vendor agnostic community translation and themes and all of those sharing things that are cool that it hosts.
I would
And
love to see that.
like
Yeah.
that feels like the best solution. That might mean that there is either some pitching in of, I mean, a server of that size is cheap.
Right.
So, but there is at some point somebody has to pay hosting costs and that kind of deal.
Right.
But that feels like the right organization to host such a
Hmm.
thing. Um, the other thing I will say is we did at Grove add the ability to plug in a Google Translate key
Hmm.
um, into 2511, which hopefully, so basically with that, every 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 piece of text is translated then or
Yeah.
should be translated. So it's less of an issue of needing to be like, hey, I'm doing Spanish and I get three-quarters of a Spanish translation because people
Right.
haven't translated and shared the new stuff. So at least having everything translated will help some of that. Um, the that does then require a Google Translate key.
Yeah, and I think that's a great option. I have said to people that just using Google Translate is a great stopgap, but obviously, uh, Google Translate does not always get context very good.
Oh, yes.
So I still think that the community server, which I would love to see be completely vendor agnostic,
Yep.
is still a way to go so that those that invest in carefully constructed translations can share them with others, which I hope they will do. I know at least Noble is perfectly willing to, and they've invested in making some. I don't know if you want to talk about that, any Elizabeth.
Um, No, we have a version of Spanish that was translated by the language department of one of our cities. They had done some other translation for us, but now they're only doing Spanish. But it's a lot. It's a lot of work. Now, my understanding with the Google Translate, and I could be wrong, is that if you use the Google Translate, you could then still override terms so that you don't need to have a different way of saying search, but there are other things that you might want to customize,
Yeah.
either because Google Translate is getting it wrong in this context, or for whatever reason you've determined that this is the friendliest language for that function. So that seems to me like a great combination of things.
Yeah, I
And
don't
yeah,
remember. Sorry.
I was just going to say that the worst Google translation is better than no translation, and
Right.
being able to kind of upgrade it for our circumstances seems Excellent.
Yeah, I love having the Google Translate, and I'm very thankful to Grove for adding that feature. I think it's great. Uh, I just want to also go the step further.
Yep.
I don't know what the process for the governance board is, but however we can put that in front of them, I will do whatever I can to facilitate.
Well, Rogan, you are in luck. I mean, I will say, so there are, right, Linda and myself are on the board, obviously. But since that is something that would cost money, I don't like no time frames on, how that would be set up, but I
Right.
100% like agree with Mark and I mean, Rogan and everything that that is something that would be, I think, appropriate like for the board to handle. Um, I think the big thing with that is just that the board needs to be able to handle money since you have to pay
Right.
for that, right? So I think that would be a good project to add to like our docket of things to
Hmm.
discuss. We have a kind of a list of things that
Right.
we want to work on and get set up. And we are currently working on becoming a real organization, which would
I
have
know.
money and things like that. But until then, I don't, right, think that's something that we could happen. On that note, though,
Right.
um,
Yeah,
we, sorry,
yeah. No,
um,
I didn't mean to interrupt you.
no, no, that's fine. I was just gonna say, I do want to echo to what Elizabeth had said. We've kind of talked about this as well because we just, due to the wide geography and number of towns that are in our network, like there's so many different communities and so many different
Mhm.
languages that are being spoken, and we've added, I think the 10 that were available when we launched, but that's not even all the languages that are
Right.
spoken. And we have tried with some of our member groups to get like a translation project off the ground.
Hmm.
That did not happen. It's and I think it's one thing to ask for people to translate like from English manually. I do think that if we, and I mean, we're still very much talking about this. I don't know if we would actually do this since I believe the Google Translate API key costs money, right? Um,
Does it's
yeah. It's like per
again
translation or
cheap.
something. Yeah.
It is per translation, so it is called once per
Okay.
server and once per search term. So it is smart enough. So as the one paying the bill on that, it is
Yeah.
designed to be cheap. There is a minimum, like you have to hit a threshold of translations too. So like I think you get 10,000 translations or 100,000 translations or something like that for free every month, at which point
Hmm.
then costs money. So
Yeah.
potentially large, like potentially if there's a lot of like libraries, it would get expensive, but for a single site, it is not or should not be. But and we're just providing those for all of our partners. So, but
Right.
or
So,
anybody with hosting, but yeah.
Yeah. And I was just going to say, I've been through the process of incorporating nonprofits with other open source projects. I'm familiar with, you know, the time it takes to do
Yeah.
these things. But that's why I open this up at this point, so we can at least get it in discussion and on the docket.
yes. And I love that. And we can definitely add that to our docket. I do. Um, sorry, I have like 15 thoughts happening.
Well, and I guess I
I
have a second motive, and I also want the people here to start thinking about it in terms of when we do have that server up, how they can supply translations and be part of it. Because just having the server up is only one part.
Right, exactly. And we all have different instances and different things to translate. We've had a bunch of people reach out to tell us that we're missing translations, but no one has reached out to
Right.
help us translate those things. And I think Elizabeth said this. I feel like people are more likely to correct bad translations than they are to
Right.
translate
Mm.
from the get-go,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So we've, that's part of why we're looking into this is we feel like we'll, if anything, be able to get people to reach out to say, hey, actually, that's not how you say borrow in whatever language, right? Um, and that is a better look than having, especially in the non-Roman character languages where you just randomly have English suddenly, right? It's a lot more noticeable in those languages. But also, we can import um, translations into Aspen. Um, Obviously, we do have some customizations on ours. I'm happy to share an export of our translations with people in the interim until we get some sort of community server set up. I did share our translations with Kathy and Elizabeth from Noble. Um, that did take some time because I forgot about it. So I like emailed her like a couple of weeks ago. Someone else had messaged me. I think Renelle had emailed me about it, and I was like, oh no, I was supposed to send that. Like, um, but it is just, I mean, it is a very ugly like CSV file, I will say. And because we have also translated some of our, like, I think we translated like the 2025 Mass Book Awards or something like that. There might be some custom translations. But I'm happy to share that with folks. I think I could upload that to our Slack channel, but I could also send that out, in an email to the listserv and stuff. And then you should be able to just import that into Aspen. I will say we do have all 10, right? 10 maybe languages set up. So if you aren't using all of those, you might need to go in there and do some editing, if you don't want to import those languages translations. But I'm happy to share that with people. And I mean, we are a Bywater hosted people, and we have asked if we can share that, and they said that we can. So that don't feel weird about that. But yeah, I can share that with folks. Though if you are just trying to get a Spanish translation, that will be a lot to go through. It will be first, right? But
And I'd also love it, and this is maybe a different kind of sharing than this kind of dedicated server thing, but I'd love it if people would share anything that they've created for patrons, help files, those kinds of things that, that are helping people use Aspen, using a particular language, because, we're in the position now of you can sign up for a library card in any of, 10 languages. And we can now set your language to Spanish and and all of that, but we have kind of nothing, we have nothing in between, nothing that tells you about Aspen in Spanish and all of that. So anything that people can share. And again, it's fun to edit and correct and enhance and all of that, something that's somebody else created than it is to start from scratch.
right, that's I think a good point, Elizabeth, because we have, I mean, I've made a bunch of like catalog help guides. How do I borrow? How do I do this stuff?
Yeah,
I speak English. I, can do a couple translations of Spanish with my like minimal, mid-college level understanding, but that's not the same as a native speaker translating everything, right?
yeah.
And so all of our catalog help guides are not available if you don't speak English because we haven't translated those. That's something I definitely didn't think about when we first were making all of those pages because I was like, great, the catalog's translated, done. And then it's like, oh yeah, I have to translate the content that I put in there, right? Which maybe, that's points for the Google Translate API key. Because then, would that translate actually the web content if it translates the terms?
No.
Right, because it's just
It
doing the
does not
translatable
currently
terms,
do.
right?
Yeah, I have thought. So the next enhancement that I want to do is for the translatable text blocks, make that be able to click a button that says translate this for me, so that you can populate that. But We also don't currently use translatable text blocks within like Web Builder, but we could. And the thought being kind of like you may want different layouts for different and different images and all that kind of stuff for different languages. But
Right, right.
Well, there's so much more we could do with languages, but the start is really getting a place, and I think Google Translate will help a lot, but being able to have Google Translate and then being able to have um, files of things. I mean, maybe you do Google Translate and then you have a file that you apply on top of it that's the um, something that is the things that should be overridden, but based on the very generic kind of sense that Google is translating things.
Elizabeth, you just reminded me. This isn't, I mean, I will share the file, so I don't know actually how helpful this will be, but I'm going to share it anyways. Um, the Massachusetts Library Board of Commissioners, one of the groups who kind of run libraries in the state, all that fun stuff, they put together a document that has common translations for like library signage terms like that. And I actually used this to translate some of the terms in the catalog and fill in those gaps when we went live. Um, it includes Spanish, Haitian Creole, Portuguese, and Chinese, which I believe is Mandarin. Don't quote me on that. But
The
that
the
might be
writing
helpful.
would be either simplified or traditional, um, and they're simplified is what's used in the mainland China, and traditional is what's used in Hong Kong and Taiwan and some other places. So it it's not Mandarin versus Cantonese, it's those two different character sets.
Elizabeth, I love you.
I I am always waiting for a chance to throw that's one of my fascinating facts, that yeah.
That is great. And I think the Chinese in Aspen is simplified. Um, I'm pretty sure.
Um I thought it was traditional, but I'd have to look again.
I'm pulling up our catalog. Oh, it doesn't say because I'm just not in admin. Anyways, um, cool. Yeah. I mean, like I said, I will share our translations. I can add that in Slack and send that to our listserv. Um, anything else about the languages? I put a note that we'll add that to the board's docket of topics. Um, and then, like Rogan said, we can all keep thinking. If other people want to like export and share their translations too, I'm sure we could do some mismatching and combining to maybe make some like master doc or something with a whole bunch of translations. But I think this is great. All right. Anything else? All right. Well, the next topic on here was just kind of standing. This has just been our list of like our dev priorities, quote unquote, as a group. Um, the question still stands, are these the same priorities still that we want? Is there anything else that has come up that we maybe want to add to our list or kind of keep on our radar? Um, or do we just want to not talk about this right now? That is also an option.
I mean, just to chime in, I mean, I see things on there that I would really like, especially the self-registration speaks to me. So I feel like that would still be a priority for my libraries because right now we're routing people back to Native Evergreen Pack, which we have never used because we started with Evergreen and Aspen at the same time. So we've done a lot of finagling to make sure that we route them to Evergreen Pack and then we route them back to Aspen. So having something native in Aspen, I think would be really great.
Right. That's always, it's funny that you say that because we use Kipu for e-card and e-renewal. And since we started using Kipu, however many years ago, and doing that, we've really pushed folks away from using the Evergreen self-registration. I think we really only have like one or two libraries who are still like insisting that they use it. And since we moved to Aspen, and moved all of our like URLs and stuff over to Aspen, now it doesn't like automatically select the home library. It just starts at the top of the list. And so we've had a bunch of people applying for cards for this one library, and that's not actually where they're trying to apply for cards for. But those, at least in our instance, because we are able to use Kipu, we do have that integrated in Aspen. It's kind of like an iframe, I think, something like that. Um, but people in the library are still, if they have like a self-reg OPAC or something like that, they'll have it set up for the Evergreen self-reg page. Um, that's been a very interesting thing. When I worked in the libraries, I would always be like, please, can we just use eCard? It's all the same. It registers them. We can just get them set up. But some folks, they really want that specific registration set up in Evergreen because then they can review everything, make the actual card, all that stuff. Um, I think that's really, do you guys do any eCard or is it all just that through Evergreen?
It's all through Evergreen, and we are specifically trying to avoid creating paper registrations anymore because if you create the document, you are required to keep track of it. So we're really trying to move away from that. So some of the libraries specifically, they won't have you fill anything out. They will literally say, "Please come over here and type everything in, and then we'll review it at this machine," because we're just trying to avoid having any paperwork that we have to keep track of, legally. So it's sort of an interesting tension there.
That's an interesting aspect. I don't think I ever really thought about like if you have the paperwork, you have to keep track of that, which does make sense. My initial thought was like, oh yeah, I hated trying to decipher patrons' handwriting. Like trying to put people's names into the catalog like that. That's why I always tried to be like, please type this in because I'm not trying to, figure out if you are Jamie or James. And then I'm gonna not be able to find you in an account, and then we're gonna end up making you like three accounts, and then we're gonna have to merge them later. It's gonna be a whole thing. Like, I- help it. I feel like the typing helped, but that was my thought. Was like, oh yeah, no, the paper forms and reading everyone's handwriting, terrible, terrible time.
And Equinox has been generous with their time in trying to help us add some legalese, but having spam detection would be great. So I know that there's a launch pad about right now about adding a CACHPA to the form, which would be helpful, but also just like the legal equivalent of saying when you click this button, you take responsibility for all these items, and it's hard to kind of like shove those things um, all onto the native Evergreen page. And I think that like especially with Web Builder in Aspen and Custom Web Builder, you could probably do something like pretty fancy as long as we could get it to right back to the database. So
And a lot of ILSs do have self-registration that are just writing back in Rogue, and I imagine Evergreen's got the APIs that we would need to do self-registration. So,
Yeah, I believe so, especially with 13.5.
Yeah, I was
okay.
gonna say the API suite with 13.5 should support a lot of that.
Yeah.
So it should just be it's just work. It's just coding to get it done. So,
Right.
um,
Is that
yeah.
the REST API stuff?
The RESTful API, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And at this point, we're starting to We still have a lot of libraries we work with on 13 on point 13 or point 14, but in the next year, a lot of those will be upgrading to 3.15.
And the Aspen registration does do a lot for, well, depending on the ILS, like you can have it check addresses and that kind of thing. So like do some, at least verify that it is a valid address that somebody is putting in and that kind of thing. And validate zip codes and that kind of thing so that you can say like only these zip codes. With Sierra, we just did some really, with Sierra ILS, not with Sierra. Did some fancy stuff with checking what, so it was for a consortium, so it was checking with the Google APIs to figure out what county people were in. So based off the jurisdiction, try to help them get to the right library, and that kind of thing. So there's a lot of fun things that we can do to help move that through. We've been doing a lot of work on self-registration over the last 6 months or a year. So, and unfortunately, it is all a little bit ILS specific, but
Yeah.
there's a lot of fun things we can do.
Yeah, if somebody wants to really champion and push forward the development on the Aspen side, I think this would be a great time to get started on it, since a lot of libraries will be moving over to 3.15 in the next year. I'd love to see it.
We'd love to do it. It'd be awesome. Yeah, it's really cool stuff. It's nice to just have it all integrated. So
Yeah.
So it sounds like maybe this is something that we might want to put feelers out for, maybe like some group dev or anything like that. I'll like add some note to that effect to the meeting notes. Maybe we could chat about it on the listserv or something. I don't know how everyone else works. I know how we work, and agreeing to get dev done takes time because you have to get approval and committees, all that fun stuff. But I do think, right, with more folks, if we all lift a little bit, then it can get done without much effort, in theory, right? I mean, much effort from our end. The developers will put in effort. Um, let's see. Thoughts? Cool. Um, Anything else from folks on this? Could I just put a vibe check on Hold's history? I feel like that's one of those things where when people first go up on Ever or on Aspen from Evergreen, if especially if they've been using the Evergreen OPAC, everyone's like, "Oh my God, where's my Hold history? I can't function without this." Um, Personally, I did not learn about Hold history until we went live on Aspen when patrons started complaining about it because I did not use it as a patron and none of my regular patrons used it either. Um, but it's one of those things where the patrons who used it like really used it. What we found is that those patrons were very upset at first, understandably. But since using Aspen, they've transitioned to other ways of managing that, whether that's a list or something else like that. Um, has that been similar for other folks? Is Holt history still something that like your patrons are really, asking for? Is it forgotten about?
Here it was something that staff were concerned about when we were talking about what's the same and what's different in Aspen. I haven't heard since we've been live any comments from patrons. That doesn't necessarily mean they're not getting, but they're not getting to us at least. And a lot of other comments from patrons are certainly getting to us. Personally, I could never understand what you would be doing with your holds history. It's not a record of what you're reading. That's, the reading history. And I guess it's if you were trying to prove with like I don't know.
As
Uh,
I could actually chime in.
oh, good.
Are you a
So,
Holt history patron?
so I will say funny that we on our previous system we were on Polaris and we were using native Polaris Power Pack, which showed canceled holds for 30 days, which is the right amount of time for a patron who, like me as an actual patron, if you don't pick up your hold and then they send it back and you next week are like, what did I have on hold? And you literally you can't remember the hold history is where that is so that you can re-request the item that you failed to pick up within the given window of time. So as a lax patron, I that's what I use it for, and I have to assume that's what other patrons are using it for. That being said, I haven't heard any mention that our patrons miss or need this particular feature. I just think also that they were really used to having free access to it, so can't miss what you didn't have. But that 30 days is nice just to give patrons a little bit of a window if they're sad that they missed something.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
I would have never thought about canceled holds, Heather. Literally, I have been talking about this for years with my coworkers, being like, I don't understand. Like, I don't get it. Like, what? And I think part of that too is because I get my holds sent to the little library that I work at, and we don't cancel people's holds. We just reach out to them and keep saying, "Hey, do you want this?" I've found holds on our shelf for like a month, and then I'm like, "Hey, this isn't ours. We have to send it back." Like things like that. But that's why I have my hold sent to that little library because they're going to be there even when I forget about it for 2 weeks, right? But being able to see what got canceled and like, hey, didn't I do that? I feel like I would have a lot of deja vu and like think I was crazy, but that's useful. That's a good point.
I don't
So
think I
Heather,
would
would
have
you,
no yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
you mentioned the 30 days and that certainly makes sense to me. Is it really that people want to see a list of their canceled holds, not all of their holds?
That would work for
I,
for
and I'm
me as a
just, well,
bad
I'm
patron who
assuming that
doesn't
you're
pick their
the
materials up.
designated patron here. Yes.
It would be interesting to hear other perspectives of how people are using it. This is I don't think I would have even noticed this myself, except that I am a patron of a library that I can't see the back end of the ILS for. Um, yeah, I
Hmm.
think if it was our Evergreen system, I would just go digging around and find the info. But this is a totally different library system that I don't work for, so I have no access to their back end information. Um, yeah, I think maybe just canceled holds could be useful.
Or maybe that would be an option so that, people who are only looking for their canceled holds.
Yeah, and I can't, yeah, I just need to, and it turns out I need to do more research on this because Polaris having shown them for 30 days made me think, oh, we could see them for 30 days. And now I'm actually not sure if we can see them in Evergreen for 30 days. I
Well,
think we can on the staff side. I'm just not sure about the patron end.
well, if we wire up Aspen to pull that information from Evergreen, might as well send them all over and let them be filterable. At that point, the heavy lifting is just getting the hold information over.
We are prepping to do Holt's history for Polaris. So, it,
Mark.
yeah, I know. So that will probably be 2601. And I need to switch notes, but I think it's canceled, unfilled. Um, so anything you've canceled specifically, unfilled and so anything you didn't pick up. I forget. So it's only like three things. So it's not things that you actually picked up. It's just the things you wound up not getting for whatever reason. For Polaris, that's what that API provides. So, but we will at least have a user interface design. It's just going to show up as a third section on the holds page where these are things you didn't get. And then the next request is going to be, I want that, but for overdrive. Um, and that's going to be trickier.
That's scary, Mark. I don't know,
I
but
know.
this is exciting. I don't know. I'm really honestly, you guys, I'm still really excited about the revelation of like being able to like see canceled holds with a hold history. Like I'm gonna like talk to some of my coworkers later and be like, "Oh my God." But This, I think, is maybe something we can talk more about at the next meeting. I feel like this is an interesting discussion on this whole history topic that we've kind of rehashed a few different times. Um, but I would like to, I'll keep this on the agenda. We can chat next time. Yes, Heather. No, listen, I say that librarians are the worst patrons. I have so much overdue stuff. I'm always like, oh yeah, it's ours. I'm just gonna renew that. It's fine. Check it out. Check it back in. It's
Oh
fine.
gosh, I'm a
It's fine.
patron of the library that I used to work at, and I get yelled at by my former employees for being a bad patron. So yeah,
Oh,
100% feel you on this.
it's so good. I was at work once and pulled up someone's account, or I didn't pull up account. A coworker pulled up an account, and it was like all red, everything overdue, some lost items, claims returned, all that fun stuff. And they're like, "Oh my God, who is that?" And it was one of our coworkers. It's like, excuse me, girl. Like,
But it's also because we have confidence in the system. Like we know when we return those things, all that red's gonna go away, and they're not gonna send Mr. Bookman after us. Like it's fine.
fine, it's just books. My problem is like, oh yeah, I'll bring it back next time I work. And then that doesn't make it into my car the next time I work, right?
I pretend
Awesome.
for my library that I don't work at, I pretend it's for research. Well, like how many overdue notices are they going to send me? And is the language going to change with each upcoming notice? And then at what point do they bill me? That that worked as an excuse the first time.
See, you're just being a good patron. You're a test subject, right? Oh, Andrea, the build notice on the desk. No. I feel like I would die if I had got an email to my work email about my lost patron items. Oh man, but this is great. Thank you, everyone, as always, for a fun meeting. Um, I will clean up our meeting notes as always and send those out. Work on getting the recordings and everything set up, and I'll see you all in a couple months. All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, folks.
Take care.
Thanks, Sierra.